The Battle of Midway, a turning point in the Pacific War. In the early decades of the 20th century, the Pacific Ocean, vast, remote, and deceptively tranquil, was steadily transforming into the central arena of geopolitical rivalry between rising and established powers. At the heart of this tension stood Imperial Japan and the United States, two nations driven by fundamentally different strategic imperatives, yet bound on a collision course by economic necessity, ideological conviction, and military ambition. Japan, an island nation with limited natural resources, had spent decades industrializing at an extraordinary pace following the Meiji Restoration. By the 1930s, this transformation had matured into a militarized expansionist doctrine. The Japanese leadership, particularly within the Imperial Navy and Army, viewed territorial expansion not as an option, but as an existential requirement. Oil, rubber, iron, these were the lifeblood of modern warfare, and Japan possessed little of them domestically. The solution, in their calculus, lay to the south and west, Southeast Asia, and the resource-rich territories controlled by European colonial powers. The United States, meanwhile, had emerged from World War I as a global industrial giant, yet it remained strategically cautious, its population largely resistant to entanglement in foreign wars. However, American interests in the Pacific were substantial. The Philippines, Guam, and Hawaii formed a defensive arc, and U.S. policymakers increasingly recognized Japan's expansion as a direct threat to this perimeter. Economic sanctions, particularly the oil embargo imposed in 1941, were intended to constrain Japan, but instead they accelerated its decision to act. The result was the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. It was a meticulously planned operation designed to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet and buy Japan time to consolidate its conquests. Tactically, it was a stunning success. Strategically, it was a catastrophic miscalculation. What Japanese planners failed to fully grasp was the industrial depth and psychological resilience of the United States. Rather than forcing negotiation, the attack galvanized American public opinion. Within days, the United States was fully mobilized for war. Yet in the immediate aftermath, Japan held the initiative. Its forces swept across the Pacific with astonishing speed, capturing the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies. Its navy, particularly its carrier strike force, the Kido Butai, was the most experienced and formidable in the world. The United States, by contrast, was reeling, its battleship fleet crippled and its strategic posture uncertain. But beneath this apparent imbalance lay structural asymmetries that would prove decisive. American industrial capacity was already shifting into wartime production, laying the groundwork for a prolonged conflict Japan could not sustain. Equally important, the United States possessed a critical advantage in signals intelligence. American cryptanalysts had partially broken Japan's naval code, JN-25, allowing them to intercept and analyze operational communications. This invisible battlefield of mathematics, linguistics, and pattern recognition would shape the outcome of the war in ways few combatants ever saw. By early 1942, Japanese leadership faced a strategic dilemma. Their rapid expansion had created a vast defensive perimeter, but it was also fragile. To secure it, they needed to eliminate the remaining American carrier threat. These carriers, few in number but highly mobile, represented the only force capable of striking back. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet, understood this better than anyone. A former naval attaché to the United States, he had first-hand knowledge of American industrial strength and warned repeatedly that Japan could not win a prolonged war. His strategy, therefore, was built around a decisive engagement, a single, overwhelming battle that would destroy the U.S. Pacific Fleet and force a negotiated settlement. His target, Midway Atoll. Midway was a small, remote outpost northwest of Hawaii, but its strategic value was immense. It served as a forward base for reconnaissance and a potential staging ground for operations against Hawaii itself. By capturing Midway, Japan could extend its defensive perimeter and lure the remaining American carriers into a trap. The plan, designated Operation M1, was complex, arguably excessively so. It involved multiple task forces spread across vast distances, including a diversionary attack on the Aleutian Islands intended to split American attention. At its core was the Carrier Strike Force, led by Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, consisting of 4 fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, the same carriers that had struck Pearl Harbor. Opposing them, the United States had only 3 carriers in the Pacific: Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, which had been damaged at the Battle of the Coral Sea just weeks earlier. On paper, the odds favored Japan, but the Americans had something Yamamoto did not anticipate: foreknowledge. Through painstaking cryptanalysis, U.S. intelligence officers limited resources and incomplete information, he chose to commit his carriers to an ambush. It was a calculated risk, one that required precise timing, coordination, and a degree of luck. As May turned into June 1942, both sides moved toward the inevitable confrontation. The vast Pacific concealed their movements, but the stage was set. On one side, a highly experienced Japanese fleet, confident in its superiority. On the other, an American force operating under pressure, relying on intelligence and determination to offset its disadvantages. What followed would unfold over a matter of days, but its consequences would reshape the trajectory of the entire war. The Battle of Midway, a turning point in the Pacific War. By the final days of May 1942, the Pacific had become a vast, invisible chessboard. Fleets maneuvered across thousands of miles of open ocean, each side attempting to locate the other first, a prerequisite for survival in an era of carrier warfare. Unlike the age of battleships, where opposing fleets could visually engage at range, aircraft carriers fought through projection. The side that struck first effectively often decided the outcome before ships ever came within sight of one another. Admiral Chuchi Nagumo's carrier force approached Midway with confidence shaped by months of uninterrupted success. His air crews were among the most experienced in the war, veterans of Pearl Harbor and subsequent campaigns. Their doctrine emphasized precision, coordination, and overwhelming initial force. Yet embedded within this strength was a critical vulnerability: operational rigidity. Nagumo's orders were clear but inflexible. His initial strike would neutralize Midway's defenses. If no American carriers were present, he would prepare a second strike against the island. However, if enemy naval forces were discovered, he was to rearm his aircraft for anti-ship operations. This dual contingency introduced a dangerous logistical complication. Aircraft on deck and in hangars would need to be rapidly reconfigured. Bombs replaced with torpedoes, fuel lines reconnected, munitions moved and staged, all under time pressure and in confined, volatile environments. At dawn on June 4, 1942, the Japanese initiated the operation. Shortly after 4:30, Nagumo launched his first wave, 108 aircraft, dive bombers, level bombers, and fighters, tasked with striking Midway's installations. The attack force swept toward the atoll under the rising sun, engines cutting through the stillness of the early morning. On Midway, radar operators detected the incoming formation at a distance of approximately 90 miles. The island's defenses scrambled into action. Marine Corps fighters, largely obsolete Brewster Buffaloes and a handful of Wildcats, rose to intercept. What followed was a brutal mismatch. Japanese Zero fighters, faster and more maneuverable, tore through the American defenders. The sky became a chaotic arena of tracer fire, smoke, and falling aircraft. Despite their courage, the American pilots suffered heavy losses. The Japanese strike inflicted significant damage on Midway's facilities, but it was not decisive. Runways remained operational. Fuel depots and defensive positions were only partially neutralized. Critically, the strike leader, Lieutenant Tomonaga Joichi, signaled a second strike would be necessary. At that exact moment, the battle began to pivot on timing, uncertainty, and compounded decisions. Nagumo, following doctrine, ordered his reserve aircraft, initially armed with anti-ship torpedoes, to be rearmed with bombs for a second strike against Midway. This process began in the hangar decks, where crews worked methodically but under increasing pressure. Then, at approximately 7:28, a reconnaissance aircraft from the cruiser Tone reported sighting what appeared to be American ships to the east. The message was incomplete. Critically, it did not initially confirm the presence of aircraft carriers. Nagumo now faced a dilemma. His planes were in the midst of reconfiguration. The hangars were crowded with fueled aircraft, munitions stacked nearby. To halt the process and reverse it, switching back to torpedoes, would take time. Yet delaying risked missing the opportunity to strike the American fleet first. For nearly an hour, ambiguity ruled. At 8:20, the reconnaissance report was updated. The enemy force included a carrier. The implication was immediate and severe. Nagumo ordered another reversal. His aircraft were to be rearmed again, this time for anti-ship operations. Below decks, the situation grew increasingly hazardous. Fuel lines snaked across the hangars. Bombs and torpedoes lay unsecured. Aircraft were partially armed, partially fueled, a volatile mixture awaiting ignition. Above, Nagumo's combat air patrol, fighters circling defensively, was being drawn down by repeated American attacks from Midway-based aircraft. These early American strikes, launched piecemeal and without coordination, achieved little in terms of direct damage. Torpedo bombers flew low and slow, easy targets for Zero fighters. Dive bombers attacked without sufficient escort. One after another, they were intercepted and destroyed. Yet their impact was not measured in hits. They forced Nagumo's carriers to maneuver aggressively, disrupting flight operations. They pulled fighter cover down to low altitudes. They stretched defensive coordination. In essence, they created disorder, incremental but cumulative. But among these attacking units were the torpedo squadrons from the American carriers. Torpedo Squadron 8 from USS Hornet, led by Lieutenant Commander John Waldron, pressed its attack with extraordinary determination. Flying obsolete TBD Devastators, they descended to low altitude and advanced directly toward the Japanese carriers. They were annihilated. Out of 15 aircraft, not one survived. Only a single pilot, Ensign George Gay, lived, floating in the water, witnessing the battle unfold around him. Similar fates met Torpedo Squadrons 6 and 3 from Enterprise in Yorktown. Collectively, these units suffered devastating losses, achieving no torpedo hits. From a tactical perspective, it was a catastrophe. From an operational perspective, it set the stage for one of the most decisive moments in naval history. At approximately 10:20, high above the Japanese fleet, unseen and unopposed, American dive bombers arrived. Two groups, one from USS Enterprise damage control teams fought desperately, but the conditions were catastrophic. Each carrier became an inferno. Nagumo's flagship, Akagi, was mortally wounded. Kaga and Soryu followed. Only Hiryu remained operational. Under the command of Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi, Hiryu launched a counterstrike. Her aircraft located USS Yorktown and struck it with bombs and torpedoes, leaving it heavily damaged and eventually abandoned. But the reprieve was brief. Later that afternoon, American dive bombers located Hiryu. They attacked with the same lethal efficiency. Which had dominated the Pacific, ceased to exist as an effective force. The United States, though suffering losses, including Yorktown and hundreds of personnel, retained its strategic core. More importantly, it seized the initiative. Psychologically, the impact was profound. For Japan, Midway shattered the illusion of invincibility. For the United States, it marked the transition from defensive desperation to cautious, offensive confidence. Politically, the victory strengthened American resolve and validated the strategy of aggressive engagement despite numerical disadvantage. It also reinforced the value of intelligence, coordination, and adaptability, factors that would define subsequent operations. In the months that followed, the strategic momentum shifted. The United States began its campaign through the Solomon Islands, starting with Guadalcanal. The war in the Pacific transformed into a grinding, attritional struggle, one that increasingly favored American industrial and logistical superiority. From a strategic perspective, Midway represents a convergence of factors rarely aligned so precisely: intelligence advantage, operational timing, leadership decisions, and chance. Japanese planning, though ambitious, suffered from overcomplexity and rigid guidance. American execution, flawed in parts, benefited from flexibility and critical decision-making under uncertainty. The battle underscores a central principle of modern warfare: information and timing can outweigh raw strength. In historical memory, the Battle of Midway stands as the definitive turning point in the Pacific War. Not because it ended the conflict, it did not, but because it irreversibly altered its trajectory. Before Midway, Japan advanced. After Midway, Japan defended. And in that transition lay the beginning of the end. The Battle of Midway, a turning point in the Pacific War. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, the Pacific Ocean did not fall silent. It merely changed tone. The violence of June 4th to 7th, 1942, Pacific conflict. To understand the magnitude of this shift, one must move beyond the dramatic destruction of 4 fleet carriers and examine the deeper systems that sustained war. Industrial throughput, pilot training pipelines, doctrinal flexibility, and command culture. Japan's losses at Midway were not symmetrical with those of the United States. While both sides lost ships and men, the qualitative nature of those losses diverged sharply. The Imperial Japanese Navy had entered the war with a finite cadre of elite aviators, men forged through years of rigorous, selective training. This system produced exceptional pilots, but in limited numbers. It was not designed for rapid expansion or replacement under combat attrition. At Midway, many of these veterans were lost. Carrier aviation is not merely about aircraft. It is about the integration of pilot skill, deck crew efficiency, command coordination, and mechanical precision. Japan's ability to project power had depended on this highly refined ecosystem. When the carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu were destroyed, they took with them not just steel and machinery, but the institutional memory of Japan's naval aviation doctrine. The United States, by contrast, operated on an entirely different model. American training programs, though initially less refined, were scalable. Industrial capacity allowed for rapid aircraft production, while training pipelines expanded to meet demand. Where Japan emphasized elite quality, the United States increasingly leveraged mass combined with improving competence. This asymmetry would compound over time. In the weeks following Midway, both sides reassessed their strategic positions. Within the Japanese high command, the shock was immediate but not fully transparent. Cultural and institutional factors, particularly the reluctance to openly acknowledge failure, meant that the scale of the defeat was not broadly communicated, even within military circles. This hindered critical self-analysis. Lessons that might have prompted doctrinal reform were absorbed slowly, if at all. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the Midway operation, understood the gravity of the situation. Yet even he was constrained by the very structure he commanded. The Japanese Navy's decision-making process was fragmented, divided between competing branches, and influenced by inter-service rivalry with the Imperial Army. Strategic coherence, already strained, began to erode further. On the American side, the reaction was markedly different. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz recognized that Midway was not an endpoint, but an opening. The U.S. Pacific Fleet, though still numerically inferior in some respects, now held a critical advantage: initiative. The ability to choose when and where to engage, previously ceded to Japan, had shifted. This shift manifested almost immediately in the planning of offensive operations in the Solomon Islands, particularly Guadalcanal. The decision to launch an amphibious assault there in August 1942 was bold, arguably risky, but strategically sound. It aimed to disrupt Japanese expansion and establish a forward base for further operations. The campaign that followed would be brutal, protracted, and costly. Yet it was made possible, in no small part, by the outcome at Midway. From a logistical standpoint, the battle revealed the increasing importance of sustainment over striking power. Japan's early war successes had been fueled by rapid, decisive operations. However, as the war extended across vast distances, the ability to maintain supply lines, repair ships, and replace losses became paramount. In this domain, the United States held an overwhelming advantage. American shipyards began producing carriers, destroyers, and support vessels at a pace Japan could not match. The Essex-class carriers, in particular, would come to dominate the later stages of the war. Each new hull represented not just a replacement, but an expansion of capability. Japan, meanwhile, struggled to compensate. Shipbuilding continued, but resource constraints and industrial limitations imposed hard ceilings. Fuel shortages became increasingly severe. Training programs, accelerated out of necessity, produced pilots with far less experience than their predecessors. The qualitative edge that had defined Japanese aviation began to erode. Psychologically, Midway introduced a subtle but critical shift. For American forces, it instilled a growing confidence, not overconfidence, but a belief that Japan could be defeated through coordinated effort and sustained pressure. This confidence translated into operational boldness, seen in subsequent engagements where American commanders were more willing to take calculated risks. For Japan, the effect was more complex. Publicly, the narrative of strength persisted. Privately, doubt began to take root. The aura of invincibility surrounding the Navy had been punctured. Commanders became more cautious, sometimes excessively so, which in turn limited operational aggressiveness. This divergence in psychological posture would influence decision-making in the months and years ahead. From a purely strategic perspective, the Battle of Midway is often analyzed through the lens of decision theory and systems failure. Japanese planning, while ambitious, suffered from overextension and compartmentalization. The Midway operation itself was extraordinarily complex, involving multiple task forces spread across vast distances with limited real-time communication. This complexity reduced flexibility. When unexpected variables emerged, such as the early detection of American carriers, there was insufficient structural adaptability to respond. cascaded into vulnerability. The United States, conversely, benefited from a simpler operational framework combined with superior intelligence. Knowing the approximate timing and location of the Japanese approach allowed American forces to position themselves effectively. While their attacks were often uncoordinated and costly, the overall structure of their response allowed for emergent success. This contrast highlights a fundamental principle. Resilience in complex systems often derives from flexibility rather than precision. Midway also underscores the role of chance, what military theorists sometimes refer to as friction. The delayed reconnaissance report from the cruiser Tone, the decision by Wade McCluskey to follow the destroyer Arashi, the timing of American dive bombers arriving just as Japanese decks were most vulnerable. These were not elements of deliberate design, yet they proved earnestly. War, even at its most meticulously planned, remains subject to unpredictability. In the broader arc of World War II, Midway represents a pivot from expansion to attrition. Before June 1942, Japan dictated the tempo of the Pacific War. After Midway, it was increasingly forced into a reactive posture. This did not result in immediate collapse, caused by Japanese forces committed to the Battle of Midway, Philippine Sea, and Leyte Gulf. However, the strategic with it, the long-term trajectory of the conflict. Economically, the implications were equally significant. The United States mobilized its industrial base to an unprecedented degree. War production transformed the American economy, integrating manufacturing, logistics, and technological innovation into a cohesive war machine. Aircraft production soared. Shipyards operated around the clock. Supply chains extended across oceans, supported by a vast merchant fleet. Japan, lacking comparable industrial depth and increasingly cut off from critical resources, faced a gradual but inexorable decline. Each lost ship, each downed aircraft, each experienced pilot killed, represented not just a tactical setback, but a strategic depletion. The legacy of Midway extends beyond its immediate military consequences. It reshaped naval doctrine, solidifying the primacy of aircraft carriers over battleships. The battle demonstrated that control of the air, projected from mobile sea bases, was the decisive factor in naval warfare. This lesson would influence military planning for decades to come, informing not only U.S. strategy, but that of navies worldwide. Also highlighting the critical role of intelligence, code-breaking, reconnaissance, and information analysis were not auxiliary functions. They were central to victory. The success of American independence set a precedent for the integration of intelligence into operational command, a practice that would become standard in modern warfare. Culturally, the battle has come to symbolize a turning point defined by courage under uncertainty. sacrifice of torpedo squadrons, the precision of dive bomber attacks, the decisions made under pressure by commanders on both sides. These elements have been studied, commemorated, and debated for generations. Yet beyond symbolism, Midway endures as a case study in the dynamics of power, decision-making, and adaptation. It reveals how advantages, technological, informational, or psychological, must be effectively integrated to produce outcomes. It demonstrates how rigid systems, even when initially superior, can falter under stands Midway, a battle measured not only in ships sunk or lives lost, but in the reconfiguration of momentum itself, a moment when the balance tipped and never returned, never